Sadly, our Distinguished Service Medal recipient this year is no longer with us. But he is here spiritually, and the impact of his great career will be felt by this country for generations to come. A United States Naval Academy graduate and an A-4 Skyhawk pilot, he was shot down over North Vietnam on October 26, 1967. The son of a Navy admiral, he was offered early release by his Vietnamese captors. Keeping faith with the code of conduct, he turned down the offer and endured torture and periods of solitary confinement during 5.5 years as prisoner of war. After the war, he completed his Navy career and served the state of Arizona as a U.S. representative and later an influential senator. He was the 2008 Republican nominee for President of the United States. During his political career, he championed a strong national defense, quality health care, for veterans, that is, and the constitutional protection of the United States flag from desecration. A 38-year member of American Legion Post 2 in Tempe, Arizona, Senator John Sidney McCain III joined Post Everlasting on August 25, 2018. He is this year's Distinguished Service Medal recipient. Ladies and gentlemen, the McCain family really wanted to be here today, but due to prior scheduling conflicts, they just could not make it work. However, we are honored to have a close friend of the senators who will accept on behalf of the family. He served with Mr. McCain in the United States Senate and is now the governor of the state of Ohio. Please welcome Governor Mike DeWine.
Commander, thank you. Commander, I see Ohio's out there well represented. Commander Reistad, thank you very, very much. And to all the members of the American Legion, thank you so very much for honoring my friend, the late John McCain. I am really honored to accept this on behalf of Cindy McCain and the McCain family. Now, some of you may wonder, why is the governor of Ohio over here accepting an award for John McCain? As the commander said, we were friends. We first met in 1982. We both were elected that year to the United States House of Representatives. I was elected, of course, from Ohio, and John from the state of Arizona. It was very clear to me after I met him that he was someone special. He was different. He was a true leader. And because of that, our entering group of members of Congress selected him to be the president of our incoming class. We've all heard the story, the 5 years that John spent in Hanoi, and the commander talked about that, about how John refused when he had the opportunity to leave, refused to leave until all the other POWs went with him. My friend and John's friend, another fellow POW, Colonel Tom Moe, has told me this story. He said that when John was beaten, when John was tortured, they would take him out, and a while later they would bring him back in. John knew that the other POWs were looking at him when they drug North Vietnamese, drug him back. And he said, in spite of the injuries, in spite of the torture, every time John would somehow manage to give them the sign, the thumbs up, to give his fellow POW members hope and encouragement. In John's book, Faith of My Fathers, he wrote about his family's military history and his experience as a POW. He traced his patriotism to this point in his life, the 5 years that he was in Illinois. And this is what he wrote. In prison, I fell in love with my country. I had loved her before then, but like most young people, my affection was little more than a simple appreciation for the comforts and the privileges most Americans enjoyed and took for granted. It wasn't until I had lost America for a time that I realized how much I loved her. End of quote. I had the privilege for 20 years in Congress to see John McCain's political courage. I would see him go to the Senate floor and take on issues that were unpopular, take positions that he knew could be unpopular, were unpopular. I remember some of his fellow senators shaking their heads and wondering how he could do it. But he did. I had the opportunity to, and let me just say one more thing. John McCain had a clear vision about a lot of things, but there was nothing more clear than his vision of America's role in the world and what it should be and the importance that we played in that world. In his 2 campaigns for the presidency, I spent a lot of time with John traveling when he would come to Ohio. Ohio, a bellwether state, candidates always there. And I remember one thing about John's campaign that kind of stood out, and that was what he did at town hall meetings. And many a time I was with him, and he would be in a town hall meeting, and he would look out at the audience, and there'd be protesters out there. There'd be number of people who were not happy with him, were for the other side. And he'd look around the room as he started, and he would find the most obnoxious poster, placard that was out there, and then he would call upon that person. A gutsy guy. That was John McCain. In that last race for president in 2008, it also coincided with my father's last illness. My father was dying of pancreatic cancer and had a stroke on top of that. My dad was a World War II veteran, saw combat in Europe, came back home, rejoined our family seed business, and joined the American Legion. He was commander of the American Legion when I was very, very young. And one of the pictures that I have in the governor's residence today in Columbus is a picture of my dad in the early 1950s as commander of our local American Legion post. Something I'm very, very proud of. The last time that I think John McCain that year was campaigning in our home county, at least, my dad was able to get there. And my dad could not get out of the car, and so I took John over to meet my dad. And I remember what my dad said to John. And Dad had a stroke, but he still could talk. And he looked at John, my dad, this World War II veteran, and he looked at John and he said, "You're my hero." You're my hero. John McCain remains my hero. His courage, his belief in, as he would say, country above self, his firm conviction that we all have an obligation to be part of something bigger than ourselves, continues to sustain me and continues to inspire me. Thank you to the American Legion for honoring this American hero. And to each and every one of you, and to all who you represent across this great country, thank you. Thank you for your service to our country. I am very, very grateful, as the American people are, for that service. Thank you very much.